Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be talking about Spring Boot 3 and integrating it with Liquibase. Liquibase is a version control library that you can use for your databases. And the great thing about Liquibase is it can work for both SQL databases and no SQL databases. And you can also implement it into continuous integration and deployment and add it to your CI/CD pipeline, as can be seen here. So the requirements for this tutorial is we're going to need Java, Maven, and SQL Server. In order to get SQL Server added to your local computer, you can go to this link, which I will add in the description. And once you're here, you select the developer download and follow the steps for installing SQL Server. Once that SQL Server is installed, they will ask if you'd like to install SSMS, and I would go ahead and accept that download, because we're going to use it to view our database tables. Alright, so now that we know what we are going to do and we know the minimum requirements we need, let's go ahead and create a project through the Spring Initializer. I'm going to select Maven, Java, and Spring Boot 3 version 3. Fill in the group information with whatever you'd like. And I'm just going to call this Liquibase demo project for Spring Boot with Liquibase. Okay, we're going to do jar and Java 17. The dependencies we will need for this project are JPA, Liquibase, of course, and we also want to add SQL Server. Once you have these dependencies added, you can click on this Explore button to make sure they're correct. So JPA, Liquibase Core, and MS SQL. Okay, looks good to me. Let's go ahead and download that. So once you have the project downloaded, generated, and saved in a local location that you can extract, let's go ahead and edit some configurations in SQL Server Manager. So the first thing you want to make sure to do is in these protocols for SQL Server, you want to enable TCP/IP. And then once that's enabled, you also will probably want to restart your server once that change is implemented. Now we have everything we need to get the project started, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new project from existing sources and select the project location. So the location I extracted to was here, Liquibase demo. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to import the project using Maven for the build. Go ahead and create. All right, so we have our initial project imported into our IDE. Zoom in here. The first thing you want to do is look at your POM and make sure you got all the dependencies added in there. If this checks out, what you want to do is check your main resources, and you should see a DB change log. This is where we're going to place the XML scripts that we're going to be using to track these changes. Now that we have all the dependencies, let's go ahead and set up the properties we need to implement Liquibase. So I'll just go ahead and paste these here, and then if you want to pause the screen, you can to fill this in. Or you could also check out the GitHub repository where I have the demo code. But essentially, we're setting the server port to 8083, and we're making a JDBC connection to SQL Server at localhost. The database name is test, and the database user is SA. So when you're in SQL Server, you need to make sure you set these things up, and how you can do that is if you go to this, once you, let's sign in here. Once you sign in, if you go to databases and select, right click on it, and then select new database. This, you can add a new database that way. Since I already have a database, it's going to be in here. There's no tables. Another thing you want to do is make sure to create the SA user. So in security, you can right click it and then a new login. And with that login, you can create the SA user. Here you can see the SA user properties that I set. What you want to do is make sure you enable SQL Server authentication here. And the password policy, uncheck the enforce password policy and the specify old password and just make the password SA. Just for demo purposes so we can get this thing set up. And it's not for production. Anyway, so you can also make sure these rules are checked in. For the SA user, DB owner, public, status, grant, and login enabled. Once you have that user set up, you can validate that it works by trying to create a new sign-in, go to localhost. Instead of Windows authentication, select SQL Server authentication, and then use the SA user to connect. Now that we have the properties configured, what we need to do is also configure Liquibase. And Liquibase needs a changelog master file. Changelog-master.xml file. And this file we can use to control what different versions we want to deploy, which is quite nice actually. So what do we add to this changelog? I suppose that's a good question. What I would recommend doing is you can look into the Liquibase documentation to see how to get that set up. The best document resource that I've seen is this, which I will post in the comments or in the description. And this will give you a helping hand to set up your files. So since we're using XML, we want to add this baseline data into the XML before we start executing some changes. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this right here and add it into the changelog master. So if I control paste that, and this is just importing a bunch of Liquibase stuff for us to use, you know? Okay, so we're gonna have 3 XML changes we're gonna do for this tutorial. So I'm gonna add them in here, and then we're gonna go through them. So the first one is include file equals db changelog underscore v1 dot xml, and And then I'm gonna add the other two, which is just V2 and V3. V2, V3. Nice thing about Liquibase is we can name these XML files anything we want. So if you need more clarity, you can name them whatever you want, and then you can decide how they get migrated via the changelog master. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. All right, so now that we have changelog master implemented, let's comment out these 3 lines and test out the code to make sure it works and the connection is successful. So I'm going to go ahead and play this Liquibase demo application, which you can get to from the group and then the application name. And then for me, it's Liquibase demo application. Once you get here, you can click on this play button and run it. So based on this run, it looks like it was able to make a successful connection. So that is looking good. Now what we want to do is add the rest of these changelog XML files. All right, so let's go ahead, add these changelog XML files in. Let's uncomment them. And I am going to create some new files. The first one is changelog underscore v1.xml. And in changelog v1.xml, we want to take that same formula we got from the tutorial, the get started. So I'm going to copy this and add it into the project. All right. So basically it gave us how we can create the change set. I'm going to modify this a bit for the tutorial. So we're going to change the author to me, and the table name, we're going to do Pokemon, and every table needs a ID. We're going to make it an integer, primary key, all that good stuff, varchar. We're going to add another column with the name, with a name of varchar. Let's add other columns in there. Let's see. Let's make sure this column is not nullable. So constraints nullable equals false. And let's add some more columns in there. So what else do Pokemon have? They got names, they got a type, column, name equals type. Okay, and then the type for this, we're just going to keep it simple, varchar 255. It also is going to have a constraint as nullable false. All right, and name type, we'll just add another one for description. Name equals, we're also going to give that a type of varchar. Char 255. Okay, column and a constraint. Nullable false. Boom. Okay, so this should add that Pokemon table into our application. Let's go ahead and give it a test run. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and run this application, and we got an error. XML2 was not found, so I'm just gonna comment these out for now and run it again. And it looks like it made some changes, so let's validate that in the database. If I go to the test table, refresh this, tables, and we're going to see a Pokemon table that got added. So if I select the top 100, 1000, I can see that a table was created with ID, name, and type with description. All right, so it looks like we're able to add those changes into the database. Let's go ahead and add the last two XML files. So I'm going to create another new file called changelog_v2.xml. And in this file, we are going to have the same basic structure as before. So I'll copy this from here. Control A, Control C, paste this in. Let's delete the change set because we're going to make a new one. Change set. The ID is 1. The author is me. And we are in. So what we're going to do is add a column into the Pokemon database. So what we need to do is add the catalog name, which equals the test database, the schema name, which equals the DBO, and the table name, which is Pokemon. Okay, so we're adding that column in, and for the column, we're gonna add we're adding a new column, obviously. So the name, what else can Pokemon have? We'll just say Poke Center address. Does that work? We'll see. Type equals varchar 255. Let's add the constraint of nullable equals true for this one. Okay, so now that we have that, let's run the application again, see what happens. We got an error. Changelog v3 is not set up. All right, sorry. So these errors keep happening because I keep adding things to the changelog for things that don't exist yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment out this changelog v3 because we haven't added it yet. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And it looks like we added another change into our database. So if I look into this Pokemon database, select top 100, we're going to see a new column was added, the Poke Center address. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and add v3 into this change log. Finally, change log v3.xml. This change log is going to be the same as the others, but what we're going to do is we are going to insert a value into that field. So instead of add column, we are going to run the insert and choose catalog name of test, schema name of DBO, table name, Pokemon, and close that table. Inside of the body, we're going to add a column, name equals ID, the value equals 25, because we're going to do Pikachu, and Pikachu's ID is 25, you know, everybody knows that. Column, name, and what did we add to this data? We got name, type, and description. Name, value equals Pikachu, column, name equals, what do we got here? Type, value equals electric. Okay, column, oh, column, name equals description, value equals electric mouse, and column name equals, we're just going to copy this here, poke center address. Hopefully this works. We'll see what happens. Poke center address value equals 123 Main Street. Okay. So I'm gonna add these columns in, make sure the changelog master is uncommented, and give this a go. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it looks like it changed those and made those updates to the database. So if I select the top 1,000 roles, we can see Pikachu was added to this database. Awesome. All right, so now we got all the changes into the database, which is great. And now we have a good version control we can add for our database changes. But what if we need to roll something back? And you know, have no fear, because Liquibase, at least the community edition, gives us the ability to roll changes back. Now we need to modify our dependencies a bit and change some stuff, but it is possible. So let's go ahead and start looking into it. All right, the first step we need to take is adding the Liquibase Maven plugin. So I'm just gonna go ahead and post that in here. Should look something like this. The current version of Spring Boot that we're using is using 420 of Liquibase, and we can validate that by searching through our external libraries. And if we go to org Liquibase, we'll see it's using commercial edition 420. So we're going to add that dependency, but also with the dependency, we need to add a new plugin. So inside of this build plugins, we're going to add another plugin. And this is going to have a group ID of org.liquibase. It's not going to be Liquibase commercial. It's going to be Liquibase Maven plugin. And it is also going to use version 420, so that's good. Another thing we need to add is the configuration. So property file. The source of the property file is going to be source main resources db Liquibase properties. And we're going to prompt on local database, set that to false. Okay, so now what we need to do in order to do these rollback changes, we need to add this Liquibase properties. I know we have this properties file outside here in resources, but we're going to add one into DB. go ahead and add that file in. So new file, and the file is gonna be called liquibase.properties. Obviously it needs to be in DB, not DB changelog, so I'm gonna try and refactor this and move it to its proper location, which is resources DB. Refactor, changelog. We got the changelog guy here, and we got Liquibase properties out here, which is what we need. Inside of Liquibase properties, you can add the following, which is very similar to what we already set up, but for this build plugin, we need to put it here. Once you have this set up, you got your SA user. You just tell it what SQL driver you're using and where the changelog master is located. I'm gonna go ahead and get everything updated. All right, so we got everything configured for our Liquibase properties. Now we want to roll back some changes. So what we have currently is we got Pikachu added into our database, and we also have PokeCenter address. Maybe we want to roll back 2 versions. So we want to roll back to version 1 because we messed up something. Maybe PokeCenter address was supposed to be named some other way. But anyways, it doesn't matter. What we're going to do is we're going to add a Maven command to roll back these changes. Make sure we're all good. So the command is the following: Maven Liquibase rollback, and then the rollback count of 2. So we're going to go back 2 versions from here. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a run. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. So valuable lesson here. We got insert database change, but we don't have any reverse way to roll it back because we didn't tell the system how to roll back changes for inserts just in case it's necessary. So what we want to do inside of this changelog v3, we want to add a rollback process. So I'm going to add that in, rollback, delete, table name is Pokemon. But before that, we want to add the catalog name, which is test, and the schema name, which is DBO. And what we want to do is just add a where clause, where name equals Pikachu. Did I spell that right? Look, Pikachu. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Let's give Liquibase a run, make sure everything's good. Okay, everything's looking good. And now we are going to attempt to roll back these changes. So I'm going to run that same command, Maven Liquibase rollback, 2 versions. Boom, Maven's running, build success, looking good. Let's check SSMS. If I try and query the Pokemon table again, we will see that the Pokemon address was removed and also Pikachu was removed. If I run Liquibase again, it's gonna add those changes in. And if we validate that in SSMS, we will see it appear. Pikachu got added back in, the PokeCenter address is added back in as well. Okay, so that was my tutorial on Spring Boot with Liquibase. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe so I can make more like it. If not, I might explore other areas. But thank you for watching this, and have a nice day.